Here next to Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California, earlier today on May 5th, 2011, a significant conflict in the battle of ideas transpired. One group of Orange County citizens protested the Human Relations Council giving a humanitarian award to Dr. Muslim Siddiqi, a member and leader of numerous Islamic councils and organizations in Orange County, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Washington, D.C. The protest group shows that he has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist facilitating and funding organization, and claims that Siddiqi is complicit in the Muslim Brotherhood's documented strategy to wage a cultural jihad against the American government and democratic culture and replace it with Sharia law. The Orange County protest group says radical Islam is bad, moderate Islam good, but it turns out that the other group, headed by CAIR and Professor Siddiqi, publicly advocate the same. But yet there is a severe tension. What accounts for this? Is one group mistaken, misinformed, or uneducated? Is the other side duplicit in really intending an agenda for Sharia law to rule North America as its highest law? Do most members of CAIR truly intend a moderate Islam, one that rejects the radical interpretation of the Quran? Or two, is there an elite, powerful group behind CAIR and they're the ones that have these ties with the Muslim Brotherhood and its attempt to wage a cultural jihad against America? Three, is it all hype and fear? Or four, is Siddiqi's interpretation of Sharia law the very kind that these protesters and many others fear is a kind of Sharia law that is in direct conflict with the U.S. Constitution? And Siddiqi just veils it behind a cloak of rhetoric. This one group claims to have documented evidence that links Siddiqi to be one of those elite people behind CAIR and thus part of the foundational structure of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Siddiqi is a longtime member of the Muslim Brotherhood. He, to my knowledge, has never come out and spoken against Hamas, Hezbollah. To the best of my knowledge, one of his students at his mosque here in Orange County was the famous Adam Gadon, who studied at his mosque, turned out
the American Taliban, the American Al Qaeda.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's one of Siddiqi's students. Right. So I mean, to give this guy Siddiqi an award such as they are tonight, it's beyond words.
This group back here has a rule that they're not talking to anyone, any camera crews or journalists. You're just not even wanting to have a conversation. Do any of you want to have a conversation? You just want to not have a conversation at all? That's actually very profound. I mean, I'm really shocked why you don't want to have a dialogue. So, I mean, I studied Islam. I have a degree in Islam. I think it's really great to have a conversation. I found this out when one of them, a newcomer, was openly speaking to me about wanting to improve relations and get to know one another. How would you say we can improve relations and dialogue?
I would say that we should get to know one another.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. Then it looked like the leader walked up to him and said, "No one's talking to anybody right now. It's the rule today." Because you're for moderate Islam, right? You're not. You're against.
Yeah, we have a rule today.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. I got that on camera. I appreciate that. It makes a lot more sense. Then the CAIR leader grabbed his own representative from talking to the other side.
The boss is here.
Can we continue over there?
You ain't gonna go anywhere in Paris.
And it's people from all over. I can't speak with you now because it's still trying to film me. Sorry. Unless you want to step away from.
But that rule didn't seem to apply to all camera crews and journalists.
Why don't you do that? Small minority, they want you. You believe they want you.
What are the exact accusations and conflict between these two groups? Let's hear from one of the spokesmen that would actually speak with us. What's the deal with the Muslim Brotherhood right now? How do you evaluate them? Have they become good? Have they cleaned up? Or are they still rather dirty?
Oh no, they're the same organization that they've always been. You know, they want to implement Sharia. Their goal is the implementation of Sharia through a cultural jihad. Muslim Brotherhood plot, yes, it's been documented. It was introduced in the Holy Land Foundation trial back in 2008 as evidence. Our government presented it as evidence the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood organization, and that's to take over North America through a cultural jihad. That's fact. Sharia law is in direct conflict with the U.S. Constitution.
Sure.
You want to talk about freedom of speech?
Sure.
Then you have to ask them, hey, do you believe in true freedom of speech? Do you believe in freedom of religion? Well, yeah, we believe in freedom of religion. Then you have to ask them, well, do you believe it's okay to speak out against Islam or speak out against your Prophet Muhammad without any repercussions? And no, that's what they don't believe in.
The key question is, if Professor Siddiqi truly does hold a radical conception of Islam like he's purported to, then why in our interview with him does he reject several key radical Islamic principles that are normally necessary and associated with an aggressive political form of Islam. Issues like the 8th and 9th century Abbasid Caliphate's conception of Sharia law, which imposed a jizya tax on all non-Muslims simply for living in the land.
No jizya today.
Right today, but in your view in history, do you think that functioned well or was it harmful?
That was a situation in the medieval time, and that's why it was done. But this is not, today we don't have any place where they have jizya.
So you're okay with being in a society having mutual equal relations?
Today equal relationship, today equal taxes. So they didn't have taxes at that time, now they have taxes. And everybody had to pay taxes, unfortunately.
Where that radical Islamic political order did not coexist well at all with non-Muslims living in the land. How has Sharia functioned throughout history as being subjugated under another ruler?
Well, I mean, this human beings.
Is it okay? I mean, is that
human beings?
Can cooperation
no,
possible?
Those who have misused the Sharia, we don't condone that. We don't accept that. So Sharia is not to be imposed on anybody else. The Quran says very clearly, no compulsion in matters of religion.
Does Siddiqi's position truly admit of having two different conceptions of Islam? One for when Muslims live in foreign lands under non-Islamic rule, like in Christian secular America, Europe, or Rome, and a second for when Muslims live in Islamic lands and Sharia is supreme? If Siddiqi does hold this exoteric and esoteric conception of Sharia, then it does pose a problem for him. Which does he mean? One, people who fear Sharia fear it simply because they think it to be a politically ambitious ideology when it is not. Or two, does he mean if people only knew the truth about Sharia, the ultimate truth, they wouldn't fear it, in fact, they would submit to it and follow it?
They don't understand what Sharia is, and I would like them to learn a little more about Sharia. But we don't impose, we don't even ask that anybody else to do it. It's up to the people.
What is your advice for advocating moderate Islam and the distinction between radical Islam?
Very important. Radical Islam has no place in Islam. Islam is the religion of peace. Islam is the religion of harmony. Islam is the religion of moderation. In Islam, you have to interact with each other, understand each other. That's what Islam is all about. Now, the radicals say we are right, everybody else is wrong, we have nothing common with others. That is wrong. Whether it is among Jews, whether it is among Christians, among Hindus, Buddhists, or among Muslims.
Listen to this Iranian-born woman explain her actual experiences with Sharia law.
I was born in an Islamic country, and I understand Sharia law. Really? Very well. It is against Constitution. It is against freedom.
Okay.
It's against women. Mm-hmm. It's against everything that America and Americans believe.
If Sharia law takes foothold in Orange County, what's Orange County going to look like?
Like Iran.
And how would they implement it in this country?
Well, first of all, you know, they can marry more than one wife, up to four, and up to four they can get married. And if they go on vacation, they can marry someone temporarily for an hour or two. That's one thing that they do. They have the right to beat up their wives, and non-Muslims are considered infidels. We will be, as we were back in Iran, we were considered infidels because we were not Muslim. And so we were treated as second-class citizens. We were not allowed to have the same freedom and the same rights as Muslims did.
So you're okay with being in a society having mutual equal relations?
Today, equal relationship.
How do we account for this discrepancy between what is actually practiced by the Sunnah and what Siddiqi says is a true conception of Islam? The most straightforward answer is that Siddiqi interprets a version of Islam that Iran does not hold, and he says they should. Yet the theory still has to be answered whether he is conceiving of the other type of Islam, the one practiced in Iran, the more radical version, isn't a type of ideal version which he really wishes could be practiced, but can't be practiced in the Del al-Harb in America, Europe, or Rome, but can only be practiced in places where Sharia law governs the land. The protest spokesman's position can best be characterized this way, where Siddiqi is advocating an exoteric conception of Islam for the Del al-Harb, and esoteric one for the Del al-Islam. And two, the type of Islam that he advocates publicly here is for the Del al-Harb, and the radical type, the more ideal type, is to lie dormant until at such time that the Sunnah can extend it to be the highest law in America.
I'm not politically correct. I talk the truth. That's the difference between me and Dr. Siddiqi. I do not use taqiyya. Dr. Siddiqi uses taqiyya. He'll say what he has to say to influence Islam.
This ostensible doublespeak might best be explained by looking at the theory of the exoteric distinction, where if you consider the 7th and 8th centuries conception of Sharia in the Abbasid Caliphate, Siddiqi says, well, they're not there's no compulsion in Islam. They're not forced to become Sharia compliant, but yet they're just imposed a tax on them. The question is that really not compulsion? How has Sharia functioned throughout history as being subjugated under another ruler?
Well, I mean, this human beings.
Is it okay? I mean, is that
human beings?
Can cooperation
no,
be possible?
Those who have misused the Sharia, we don't condone that. We don't accept that. So Sharia is not to be imposed on anybody else. The Quran says very clearly, no compulsion in matters of religion.
It seems like he is just playing on the legal and what we consider in America to be the real definition of things.
Hey, do you believe in true freedom of speech? Do you believe in freedom of religion? Well, yeah, we believe in freedom of religion. Then you have to ask them, well, do you believe it's okay to speak out against Islam or speak out against your Prophet Muhammad without any repercussions? And no, that's what they don't believe in.
Have you ever met Dr. Siddiqi?
Yes.
And what did you think?
Oh, he's a very pleasant, gentle person, soft-spoken. You want to put your arms around him and hug him. But when you know his real agenda,
he's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
There you go. That's it. I couldn't have said it better myself.
If the protesters' evidence is legitimate, there are two possible conclusions. One, Siddiqi and CAIR are trying to convince everyone they believe something they don't, namely in a historically progressive conception of Islam, one that is different than the 7th and 8th centuries conception of Sharia, but in fact they really don't believe in it. They really believe in that original conception of Sharia. And they hold this sort of moderate conception to be one that should reign in times of war, times when non-Muslims rule, and the radical conception should lie dormant until such time that the Sunnah can exert it upon the world. And the second option is that they really do believe in what they say, namely a historically reformed, moderate version of Islam. And protest groups like this simply become worried over apparent duplicity in their speech, where the appearance of equivocation would then be an accidental product of a cultural crossroads, where the technical interpretation of the Quran defines these conceptions of Islam, where in America the historical tendencies kind of define cultural ideas more than the letters of laws. This sort of distinction is just what the CAIR representative says in the following statement, with whom I will leave you and let CAIR have the last word.
That there's so much ignorance that needs so much education. I think the main confusion is that people are hearing about Islam and Muslims from people who have an agenda or misunderstanding of Islam and Muslims. So what they need to do is break down the barriers, go visit a mosque, talk to people one-to-one.
And is that your position is you want to advocate moderate Islam, right?
Yes. Actually, Islam in itself, per se, by default, is moderate. Cannot be. Anything deviation from a moderation is a deviation from Islam, because that's the saying of the Prophet. Any deviation from moderation is a deviation from Islam itself. So it cannot be. A person cannot be hateful, extremist, and be a good Muslim at the same time. The minute they become the same way, a person cannot be hateful, extremist, and be a good Christian at the same time, or a good Jewish person at the same time.
Right. So is the core of Islam found in tradition, or in the books, or in the hadiths in the book?
The core of Islamic teaching is taken comprehensively from the practice, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, the revelation of the Quran,
and the hadiths and the Sunnah as it changes throughout.
And the scholars have understood it. So I hope that satisfies that.
Well, thanks. It's a start.